run the program today. Terry is a leader in water conservation. He ran his own company before it was acquired by Rubbermaid. And essentially, one of the things I was looking over his extensive bio. He holds many patents, has authored books on the subject. But the thing that stuck out in my mind was he did a large federal building and reduced their water bill from $600,000, was that a year or a month? A year to zero. So basically, he brings products to market that help you save a huge amount of water, which also turns around to a huge amount of savings on the sewage side. And a lot of his products have paybacks in 12 or 18 months. Some of them actually are much shorter than that. But without going into further ado, let me introduce my friend Terry Janssen.
Thank you, Austin. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to always come out and get a free breakfast.
Yeah.
That's a good thing you have breakfast.
We haven't got the bill yet.
Program. Sometimes it isn't free if you have the program first. But it's good to be with Rotary. I've been a member of Rotary. I'm not currently a member of Rotary, but I first joined Rotary in 1964.
You can change that, you
know. And I've been a guest of the club that Austin was talking about a number of times, but been involved in a lot of Rotary projects over the years. I don't know how many here remember Polio Plus.
Remember.
Anyway, we had some interesting times. But I'm here to talk about water conservation. Austin tells me I've got, what, how many minutes? 8 o'clock. Okay. Which is a lot of material to cover in that short a time, but maybe I can whet your appetite, no pun intended, about the serious problems we're facing in the world with our freshwater supply. How do I flip this?
I'll take care of the lighting for you.
Or we can just flip the one slide the whole time. I patented a number of products over the years to save a lot of water. Probably the most unique product I patented was a urinal that flushes with humidity. And over the years, Rubbermaid got acquainted with us and ended up taking over all my patents, and they make all of our products now. So, but historically, the fresh water supply in the world since the time of the beginning has been about 0.3% of all the water in the world is potable or drinkable. And people see all the water in the oceans and so on, but there's very little of it that's water that we can actually use. Do you have a flipper right now?
No, I sure don't. I'll do the flipper.
Our population growth and climate change is what's really causing the problem. A lot of people think it's droughts and other thing, and certainly that enhances it. It is an issue, but the bottom line is it's climate change and population growth that's making the problem worse. So. When you stop and think about it, the amount of water that we produce every year from rainfall and other snowmelt, other sources, has stayed the same since time of the beginning. And the population growth that hasn't, of course, stayed the same. Up to half the water in the American rivers has been used, collected, treated, and distributed downstream. That's phenomenal when you stop and think about it. In 1907, we had 1.6 billion people in the world using water. By 2057, it's projected that we'll have 10 billion people in the world using water. And then as global warming occurs and climate change, seawater levels rise, it wipes out more water in the aquifers because the water gets to a certain level, seeps in, and contaminates the water in the aquifers. This is this goes on and on and on for pages if you really start digging into what we use water for. But some of these things, when I first dug into this, really shocked me. We think about flushing our toilet, drinking a glass of water, washing our hands, and so on, and we never stop to think about all the things that water are being used for. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but every time we wash dishes, we're using somewhere between 9 and 20 gallons of water. it takes 62,000 gallons to produce 1 ton of steel. Somewhere in here, it's been a while since I looked at it. Oh, to process a 1/4 pound hamburger is a gallon of water. And it goes on and on and on and on. And we don't stop and think about all the things we use water for. Quite awesome. A lot of communities now have had to go to what they call toilet to tap systems, where we're converting our sewage to potable water because there just isn't enough supply to go around anymore. Go ahead. Dunwoody, I cut this article out of the paper some time back, but Dunwoody, Georgia, for example, is a new community, new development, and it was developed on the basis that they're going to use the sewage for their drinking water. There's many communities in California that have had to go to that. That's right here in the United States. We have several communities in the United States now that truck the entire water supply for the community in by taking it. One town in Kansas that's on the Ogallala Aquifer that their whole water supply comes in by truck. The Ogallala Aquifer is the 2nd largest aquifer in the world. It flows under North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. And in the last 10 years, it's dropped over 100 feet. We have used to have an office before Runway took over. We had an office in Singapore that covered the mainland China market, and they tell me that there are many, many places in China you cannot get a drink of water. Gone. There's no water available. Now the population growth, as I said, is causing a major problem, and it's just causing our water to disappear. We're using it up for the most part. Now guess what? Oil companies now are buying water rights all over the world for, we used to have mineral rights and so on. Now there's water rights, and many of these water rights are being bought up by the major oil companies. That's got to tell you something. Well, we talked about the water shortage, and that is a real situation, but that's not all. When you get a low water supply, there's other things that start to crop up. They found now drugs in the public water supply of 41 million people in America. And you can leave it there for a minute right there. Utility companies, water utilities, have tested in some locations for the quality of water, and the drugs started showing up. And the EPA, some time ago, started telling water utilities, it might be a good idea not to test for drugs in your public water supply system, because if you find them, you're going to have to report. And that's pretty well assured.
Wow. No test for them.
Yes. That's a true with that. And they're expecting that in most water supplies they're finding drugs, and the parts per million keep increasing. Largely, they think it's from people flushing unused prescriptions down the toilet, that sort of thing, but it is a significant factor. And this, you can't read this, but this is some water quality reports that I picked up for some select cities, and there's some large cities in there. And when you go down, and these are the ones that did test it before the water utilities got leery about continuing to test their water. And it's basically these major cities, and there's many more just like it, the water quality levels are poor at best. This is what you might find in a typical glass of water in many of these communities. It's amazing what has happened. All the abuse and everything gets seeped into our aquifer system. Now, besides the low water supply, the shortage, and the water quality with drugs, that sort of thing, now the EPA has become very concerned about terrorist threats to our water supply system. When you stop and think about it, our public water supplies throughout the country are pretty vulnerable, and they think this is a real threat. So they implemented a few years ago some pilot programs.
So number two there, they've just disclosed that they put pilot programs in place. I will tell you, as the county's Homeland Security Director, that I have had detailed plans in place now for 10 years on protecting our potable water supplies and our water utilities. In fact, the day of the 9/11 attacks, the second phone call I made after a call to the school board was to my lead water utility, ordering them to activate the plans to protect the water infrastructure. So that's not breaking news. You know, that's been ongoing for a very long time.
That's great.
And I can't give you all the details of what's in place, but I can tell you that there is a pretty extraordinary network of protective measures in place for our potable water. Now, I can't tell you that's like, you know, the situation everywhere, but I'm telling you what's going on in Florida. So,
well, that's good, and part of the problem with our water and this particular concern is that it's not very well. There are some solutions, and that's when I got started in this many years ago of developing products to save water. We did come up with a lot of solutions, and we think the ultimate solution is that people are going to want to control their own water supply. You go ahead and go. And we call it the Great Well in the Sky. We've been successful in taking some significant facilities completely off the water grid from the Great Well in the Sky, from rainwater and humidity. We designed a system for the Atlanta Thrashers hockey team 2-3 years ago where they could make all the water, all the ice for their hockey rink from humidity that they already had there. The U.S. Department of the Treasury, headquartered in Washington, D.C., I think they've finished it by now, but we laid out a plan, and they're in the process of taking their building completely off the water grid with humidity and with rainwater. You can just write that. The Leon County Courthouse in Tallahassee, for example, they, I believe we calculated they can collect about 3 million gallons of water a year from their rooftop. But their condensate lines, their air conditioning, was flowing 7 million gallons of water a year. So that building was producing 10 million gallons of water a year just from rain and condensate. And they were dumping it down the storm sewer. And there's just countless stories like that where there's a lot of water available to use that we're dumping down the storm. The Organic Valley orange juice producers in Orlando is another one that's totally zero water consumption building. So it is possible that we can live with various systems of water availability other than coming out of our aquifer, because the supply is going down, quality is going down, and worldwide, in other parts of the world, it's really a serious problem. So, if I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to do it. This is kind of a quick overview, but we're trying to get some public awareness out there of what's really going on.
Where do you get your water that you drink?
Say again?
Have you been involved in many water projects?
Not really, but unpertaining to this, that I did get involved in building a public water supply system for Punta Gorda, Roatan, many years ago. Yes.
Is RO just not practical on your reverse osmosis? You know, we have so much salt water.
You mean desalination? Yeah, it's being used everywhere. That doesn't have, well, not, it's been used in a lot of places that don't have public water supply, like the islands. Desal has been used for years, and it works. The problem with desal is it's extremely expensive. There's a public utility now in the Caribbean that they specialize in all they have for water supplies, all desal plants. So it's a desal public utility, and water in some places getting as high as $90 a thousand gallons. We retrofit the Cobalt Coast Resort in Grand Cayman a number of years ago, and they're on desal now. And the guy, long after they put everything in, he called me in the morning. He said, "You know, I just figured out if I put one of your faucet aerators on one of my faucets in the morning, it pays for itself by sundown." And that's how expensive water can get on desal. Well, you know the story of the desal plant. Camp. That's not good. Yes, sir.
You were talking about the Ogallala issue and how that aquifer has been drawn down. I bet if you check, there's probably somebody somewhere bottling that water and selling it.
Oh, I'm sure there are in the
You
irrigation.
look at how much water is consumed that's bottled water anymore. I mean, it's just
Right.
an absurd amount of water going to that.
Now, there are machines out there. I have one, as a matter of fact. We're not using it at this present time, but when we had our office up, yeah, we made a lot of water this morning. Yes, sir.
You mentioned waterless urinals before. How do those things work? Do they have to wash those to keep them from getting smelly? You know what I'm talking about? There's no flush valve, there's no water to it.
Well, you just asked me a question. It'll probably take 3 or 4 hours to cover.
Good. Go ahead.
They work very well. I've had a lot of experience with them. And the thing, I'm glad we've already eaten, the thing about urine is that it's about 96% water. And typically, fresh urine doesn't have an odor unless you've been eating asparagus or spinach or on some other kind of prescription drug. And now, when urine dries up and gets stale, it does, we all know, develop an odor. But that's the basic concept. In the urinals that we develop, the Rubbermaid Nell cells, we use an enzyme bacteria bug that's in the bottom of the urinal. I don't know if you're all familiar with enzyme bacteria or not, but they thrive on the kind of thing that you find in sewer line buildup, and they keep multiplying until you kill them. And so we have a little enzyme bacteria bug that goes at the bottom of the urinal. That controls the odor, sanitation, and so on. And then in commercial places, they typically clean their toilet urinals every day. Sometimes a lot more than that. The Orlando Airport, for example, they clean all of their public restrooms there every 15 minutes, 24/7.
Wow.
Yes.
You mentioned about pharmaceuticals leaching into the water supply. Simplistically for me, it sounds that why can't the local authorities just put filters or something in place to take them out? Is that feasible, or is it too expensive?
Well, I'm not that familiar with the water treatment things, but I don't think they've been able to develop a purification system yet that can put all those drugs out.
To be safe, to be, you know, these are trace amounts, okay, but they're there, and there's enough that they are identifiable where they can separate one from the other and say, you know, this is this kind, this is this kind, and he's right. That's why there's such an effort out there now to try and get people to turn in old prescriptions so that they can be destroyed in a proper manner, because people just go in the medicine cabinet and they go, oh, this is from 3 years ago. They don't think it's hurting anybody.
I put mine in the landfill.
Well, they have a lot of trouble in Lake Michigan with that too. Thank you very much.
Terry,